Welcome back to the channel, guys. We're finally getting back out on the water, back out on the boat, and doing some on the water instructional videos. We're gonna be back on the track here, doing the stuff that you guys have enjoyed from my channel for the past few years or months, depending on how long you guys have been watching. We will not, however, be on my boat, but we'll be going out on a friend's boat today. We actually just got done fishing and I'm finishing up some of the intro and B-roll stuff at the house here. Today, we're gonna be talking about my favorite way to catch summer bass, the #1 technique that I use to catch summer bass every single year up here in the Northeast. I use it all over the country, actually. I've used it on Tennessee River lakes, other places down south. Lake Hartwell is another place that I've really used this bait. But truthfully, if you fish in the Northeast, anywhere up here, whether it's smallmouth or largemouth fishing, especially if you fish in the grass, we're gonna show you a way to do that today. We will be fishing a grass lake, but this is a great bait for smallmouth as well, and that's gonna be the drop shot. I fish this thing from probably June. I'll fish it earlier than that too, from bedding fish and stuff like that. But for truthfully like casting and fishing for fish out on different pieces of cover, I fish it from literally June all the way through September. It is like my go-to bait for that time of year. I use it all the time. And today we're gonna be talking about the Texas rig setup and how you're gonna do this. So I've already done a video on how to rig this, and that'll be linked at the end of today's video if you wanna go fully in depth on how to rig everything up here. What we're gonna do today is really show you how and where to fish this thing out on the water and catch some fish with it and really show you how effective this bait can be. So we'll go through the rig quickly here just in case you haven't seen that other video. I have a 1/4 ounce weight at the bottom here. This is just a standard stick style weight. I have a VMC hook right here. This is the Nico hook that has the keeper. I use a robo worm. That's like my #1 bait for doing this for largemouth. Obviously I'll have a different drop shot rig if I'm fishing for smallmouth, but if I'm fishing for largemouth, whether it's grass, brush piles, offshore fishing, this will be the rig, and that'll be the robo worm. That'll be like the only bait that I throw. 6-inch most of the time. If you have smaller fish, you can go 4.5 if you really need to. And then coming down to the setup here, we have 15-pound test braid up to an 8-pound test fluorocarbon leader. That's my setup there. You can go bigger on your fluorocarbon leader if you need to. I use the lime green so I can see when my bait hits the bottom and keep track of all that. And then I have a Cash and Core spinning rod. This is the 7-foot medium fast action. Basic spinning rod, that's what I use for my drop shot fishing every year. And then this is the Shimano Sedona 2500. They don't make this one anymore. When I put links down below, I'll either link to the exact product or something very comparable. I know you guys have had some questions on that recently. I've been changing all my links over from the Tackle Direct ones I've been using to Fish USA. And if you want to support my channel by purchasing anything through those links down below or using any of my discount codes, you'll help the channel out a ton. But I know some of those links were going to dead ends or products that didn't exist anymore. So I'm trying to link them and re-up them to fresher products. So you'll see a different spinning reel when you click on the link, but it's comparable to what I got right here. So that's the setup. Let's head out on the water and do some fishing with it. What we're gonna be doing is targeting grass lines. We'll talk through it while we're out there on the water, but we're fishing offshore structure, offshore grass lines, pieces of cover on the outside of grass lines, places these fish can get in the summertime. They're gonna start to school up. They're gonna just focus on eating bait fish, feeding up. All they care about is staying full all summer long. They don't have spawning on their mind anymore. They just care about eating enough food to survive the summer. So you're gonna find areas where these fish are schooled up and catch some fish on it. However, some of these places you fish might be very pressured, and the drop shot will get it done and catch fish no matter how pressured they are. But truthfully, I even use it as a search bait on live scope. I can go to areas that I side scan, find a certain place I want to cast to, and just make dedicated casts with it on live scope. And if I don't get bit, if they're not going to eat a drop shot, they most likely won't eat a crankbait or something other crazy bait in there either. Sometimes they will, but sometimes I'll go straight for the drop shot just to get bites and see if they're down there. So it's quickly become a confidence bait of mine, and I use it every year. So let's head out on the water and catch some fish. All right, so now that we talked about the drop shot setup here, let's go ahead and actually fish this thing around. We'll show you where you want to fish this here in the summer. Major player in the summer for me, especially up here in the Northeast. I probably catch 90% of my bass all summer long on this exact bait right here. We're throwing a pink robo worm today, but I've caught them even on the Morning Dawn or the Aaron's Magic. Those are my two favorite colors that I really like to throw. And all we're doing is getting on grass lines here. So it's gonna be hard to see because there's a little bit of cloudiness in the water, but the grass is about topped out right here. Over on the left here, there's just hard bottom and edge to the grass. There's a lot of bait. It's flicking on the surface over here. And then off to the right is the thicker grass bed. And what those fish will do is get right on the edge here and just live there, chase bait, spend their summer while the water's hot. They get cooler water down there. They get oxygen from the grass. They get a place to hide. They have tons of bait to feed on. They have all kinds of stuff that they can do down there. So all we're gonna do is just pick our way down this grass line, make a cast to the edge, and drag it back nice and slow. You kind of want to feel it pop its way through the edge of the grass, because down at the bottom of the edge where you can't see, there'll be a little fringe edge that's like 6, 12, 2 foot tall. That's usually how tall you want to make your drop shot leader. And then you just slowly drag it, feel it work its way through the edge there and out into the open area. And that's often when you'll get one of those bass to grab it, because they'll just ambush your bait coming through the edge just like it was a bait fish. So we'll get to fishing here and see if we can catch us a couple. It'll happen. Not a big one. But the fish literally ate it as soon as it hit the bottom. A lot of times these fish will eat it on the fall in this grass. We'll see if we can get us a bigger one than this guy here. But they'll either eat it on the fall or, ow, he just tail flapped me right in the gut. They'll either eat it on the fall or a lot of times when you're dragging it. And we'll show you when we get another robo worm rigged up here. I'll show you, one, how to rig it up, and two, how to fish this thing a little bit differently if they're not eating it on the fall. Because the biggest thing I can say is the way you fish it, once you get it on the bottom, will determine how many fish you catch. So little 1 pounder there, we'll throw him back, and we'll show you that little way to fish it here to catch a couple more fish than other people out there on the water. So let's get us rigged up with a new robo worm here. All right, so we have our VMC Nico hook here that we talked about earlier. It has that little keeper up on the front. All we're gonna do to rig this up, I'm gonna make sure my hook is still good here. Okay, so all we're gonna do to rig up this bait, you're gonna come right in the nose here, centered up. You're gonna go down to where the hook bends and then pop it out right there, just like you were gonna do a Texas rig. And this will make sure you can get it through the grass without getting hung up, and you can catch these fish in the grass or outside of the grass and cover a bunch of water. Now, when you get it up to the head here, most of the time you wanna spin it over and push it up. Don't do that. You wanna keep it upside down and push it over the keeper first. It'll rip the channel in the head of your plastic, and then when you flip it over and pull it back into the keeper, it'll stay on longer and you'll get an extra fish or two out of your bait because it'll be holding against the keeper and it didn't already rip through the plastic. And then lastly, you just measure it up like you would any other Texas rig, and you just go ahead and punch that through the back and keep it right below the top of the bait there so that the hook can still come through if you set the hook, but it's not gonna get stuck in that grass and you're gonna be able to pull it through easily. And that's the setup. And I know we're fishing it on a spinning rod, but it'll work just fine. You'll be able to get that hook through. They're made with pretty light wire, so when you lean on them with the spinning rod, especially with the braid, it'll still penetrate that hook right through their skin, and you'll be able to get them in the boat. So we'll get back to fishing and see if we can get us another one. I just had another bite right there immediately. So while you're fishing this drop shot down there, one thing that I like to do to catch a little bit more fish than everybody else, instead of the biggest thing I've seen with a drop shot, and I've done it in the past, is you want to shake your worm a lot. The whole time you're reeling it in, you're always shaking that rod tip. That makes it look very unnatural. It's darting around doing all kinds of crazy stuff. You will catch fish doing that, and it does work. I've caught numerous bass doing that. But my favorite way to fish it, especially on these grass edges, is I'm gonna cast this thing out there and I'm gonna let it sink to the bottom and just lay there for a second. That's gonna be the first thing that I do. So we'll cast this out there, we'll let it sink all the way down. My line laid slack, I'm just gonna let it sit there for a second and see if one picks it up. The first thing I'll do is I'll reel up my slack and I'll feel if there's one on there. There is not. So instead of shaking it like crazy, sometimes you'll have to pop it out of the grass a little bit just to get it to come through. So it's stuck in the grass right now. I'll go ahead and pop it free. That Texas rig works its way right through the grass. I'll let it sink right back down to the bottom. And then all I do is just drag my rod tip really slowly, like you're fishing a Texas rig almost, and just kind of slowly pull it through that grass and feel it. It'll get snagged less because you won't be putting pressure on the hook for it to become exposed and catch the grass. And it'll just naturally come through the water and you'll get a lot more bites that way. So we'll keep fishing it this way, dragging it real slow, and we'll catch one. That was almost planned. Come here, buddy. Oh my gosh, he got me again. That's not a bad one. And you can see those fish on that grass line definitely feeding up. That's a fat one right there. Typically, this is the end of my videos where you see me on the other camera, but we're fishing on Brock's boat like we said, because my boat's still in the shop. So if you want to see another video talking about exactly how to rig this drop shot up, check this video out right here. Hit that subscribe button down below, and thanks for watching. See you, buddy.